Whether you are a data scientist, analyst, or business professional interested in predictive analytics, our next panel discussion will provide valuable insights into leveraging machine learning to unlock the full potential of your predictive models. We have an expert panel of speakers who will share their views on how machine learning can take your predictive analytics to the next level. Let's hear it for Bill Moher, Principal Advisor at Intensity Analytics, Yoel Kluk, Chief Product Officer at Deepplee, Thaija Dickerson, co-founder of Kontrak IQ, Himanshu Sharma, Chief Information Officer at AMSYS Group, and Satish Ramakrishnan, founder and CEO of the Qube. Take the stage, please.
Welcome, everybody. It's an honor to be part of this distinguished panel and a pleasure to be leading this discussion today. My name is Satish Ramakrishnan. I'll get into some quick introductions first and then into the topics. So I am the founder of the Qube, where we build AI-powered immersive 3D spaces for better collaboration, where we can put more social and personal connections back in our workday. I also run a startup studio called Venture Bay. We're always looking for smart founders with great ideas that can change the world, and we help them get off the ground. Before these, I've been in the industry about 25 years, starting as a developer and all the way to a CTO. During that time, I've built large-scale predictive and prescriptive analytics systems for government level security, law enforcement, and as well as built ML on really small wearable devices. I also coach executives and leaders. So that's my background, and we'll get into introductions. Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Moher, and I am a principal advisor and investor in Intensity Analytics. Intensity Analytics is a 13-year-old AI machine learning based security company that can tell who you are based on how you interact with computers, including how you type. I have been in the technology industry for 25 years. I'm a software engineer by training, but moved over into the marketing and sales world as a consultant for very large and very small startups. And I'm happy to be here and happy to talk to you guys about why AI and machine learning is a tremendous opportunity for this country and the world, and how it is going to change our lives all for the better. And I'm happy to be on this distinguished panel and happy to talk more on this exciting subject. Thank you.
Joel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yoel Kluk. I have a degree in data science. I also have a degree in creative problem solving. So I like to joke around to say that I have a degree for each side of my brain. I'm the founder of Deepplee Analytics. We use different algorithms to incorporate the social analysis, the social influence of employees in an organization to correlate with the performance of the organization. I actually think the most sexy thing we do in the company is the use of network analysis and the nodes and how the psychology of each person can be attached to through machine learning, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So yeah, I received an award in 2017 from Mexico. Most of my clients are in Latin America, and I'm just excited to be with this panel and with you.
Hi.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thaija Dickerson. I am a co-founder of a company called Kontrak IQ. I'm sorry, I have a little throat congestion. But we provide a guided contract lifecycle management solution. And essentially what makes our solution very niche is that the foundation of the system incorporates machine learning, natural language processing, AI, and data analytics. So prescriptive and predictive analytics is really the foundation of our solution. And so what we do is we actually help enterprise companies primarily with their contracts, being able to gain insights and making proper strategic decisions based off of the data that they have within our solution. My background is primarily with enterprises, and if you've worked with any enterprise companies, you know that they have a lot of data, and they're really poor at managing the amount of data that they have. And so a lot of my experience is coming up with solutions and developing ecosystems so that they can manage their systems and the data within those systems to give them insights and being able to make strategic decisions. So that's my background primarily.
Hey guys, this is Himanshu Sharma, and I'm coming from Houston here. Currently, I'm working as a CIO of AMSYS Group. So AMSYS Group is a 1,300 strong employee company, and we are in multiple sectors. We take care of managed services, IT services. We are in oil and gas also, and construction businesses. So it's like, it's more about a very diversified company, but like my focus area is I'm working for last 2 decades in banking and fintech, and have tons of experience in that area. By education, I'm more in like I started my like education career for the chemical engineering, but I found that it's not where I should be staying. And during that time, I start doing a lot of programming. And back in 2002, when ANN, the artificial neural network, was first, like we are finding some practical uses of that. I have implemented that in chemical fluid flow, and it took me like months to train the model. And at that time, Pentium 4 is the best one. It's not on like those models don't run on GPUs. Like we have to use CPU for that. Extremely slow processing. And after 20 years now, all that can be done with your watch also, right? It's so much computational power has been created, and I think that computational power is causing that revolution in AI. AI is there for a very long time, like machine learning is there. All these mathematical models are there, and I've seen them, use them. After 20 years, what I feel that it is, a lot is already there in the market. What you have to do is understand what product and features are there, and then leverage it for building solutions in different sectors. Like, because we are solving the problems, and the challenge is more of the technical people, they want to use a technology rather than solve a problem. So that is my big learning after 20 years. It took me that long to understand that. But definitely now see a lot of big things happening, right? People are calling it like AI will change the world same as internet has changed it. So let's see where we go from here. Thank you, guys.
So that's a lot of knowledge and experience right here on the stage. So let's start harnessing that here. I was at the panel here yesterday about AI. Now we will see a lot of overlaps, but at the same time we'll try to keep it more focused on ML and how that is propelling predictive analytics forward. But before that, let us get into some definitions. People always ask me, what is AI? What is ML? What is the difference? Aren't they the same? I just thought it was AI-ML. Right? So we'll just start with getting some definitions out of the way. Let's start with Bill.
Sure. So I think the first thing to talk about is that all of these technologies sort of fit into 2 general categories. Artificial general intelligence, AGI, which we are not to yet, and things like machine learning is taking and ingesting massive amounts of data and doing predictive things with that data. And so technologies like like ChatGPT that everyone is familiar with, and all of the different large language models that are out there, you know, are generative technologies. They're things that you can use to create new works. One of the best ways I've heard people explain this to a novice audience, and not saying that you guys are a novice audience. You look like our tribe of people here, engineers and geeks, and but the generative technology is there's a word in the English language to describe it, and it's called pastiche. And so what pastiche is everyone's familiar with parody, you know, and Weird Al writes a song that's a parody of something else. It's a flavor of the original song that's made in the image of the original song. Pastiche is something that can take data and replicate it, a data set, and replicate it, and so it's almost like imitation, which they say is the sincerest form of flattery. I think all of the comedians who imitate people on SNL, I think not all of the people that are imitated are flattered by it. But the most important thing to think about this generative AI and all of the issues that we're starting to see with this is that it's only ever as good as the inputs that it's given. So the only way someone can sound like me is if the model only knows my voice, you know, and you know, hopefully it knows my voice on my best days and doesn't know my voice at the end of a conference, a long week-long conference like this, when my patience is gone and maybe some more colorful language comes out than should. But I think the understanding the generative terms, you know, is very important, because the tools are capable of doing so much that we haven't seen before, you know, and we're only getting started here.
Joel?
Yeah, so the first question I would ask back is, why is it so important to know the difference between the two? Because at the end of the day, they are in the same realm. But if I had to attempt to respond it, I would do two intersections or two mental maps. One is, I think, on the base of maturity. So analytics, you can have visualizations, that's analytics. You can have predictions, that's analytics, and that's where machine learning starts coming into play. And then you will have optimization models. I think that's where machine learning really is all about. So it's that intersection between data science and data engineering. Artificial intelligence requires more data, more time, and it starts making recommendations, not only the analysis. That would be my attempt to try to respond it.
Okay, so I'm not as technical as my counterparts, so I will take the stab at saying that artificial intelligence to me is the mimicking of human intelligence, or honestly exceeding, an attempt to exceed human intelligence. And then machine learning is a subset of AI. So you'll have your AI, you know, we do contracts, so it's the natural language processing and the deep learning. So all of those are like subset components of the overall AI modeling.
Himanshu?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, just for me to give in a one line, it's machine learning is a subset of AI, right? AI is much wider. Even like this, like in 80s, there is expert systems is another technology. So basically you feed the data and then you ask the question, it answers that same thing back to you, right? That is AI also, right? But now, like whatever you ask, it can answer that. It doesn't wait what it know. It can understand and extract that information out of the documentation, right? Like cool thing that I learned recently is I was using ChatGPT, like some internal model training, and it understands the program that is written. So I asked from the documentation, like, what is the program, or like what this program do. So then it explained me what that program is doing. That means developer doesn't have to write any documentation, right? The AI can do that for them. Like it's mind blowing if you see at what level it can bring the impact. So I've seen developers lazy, like they don't write any documentation. Like my code is my documentation, and now it's true, right? That is true now. Like AI can read that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just add. In the AI panel, I heard that learning and feelings is the difference between AI and what we have not done in AI yet. And I want to add one more thing, which could be the difference forever between AI and human intelligence, which is common sense. Right? So how I'll put this is AI is the wider field that we're trying to build intelligence into computers. But at the same time, there's ways to build it, right? There's training, that you train something and it's done. But then beyond that, we need to be learning from our surroundings. And that's what we're teaching machines to learn, and that is ML. That's the field of ML. Maybe there's really something more later, which is how to learn feelings, right? And how to learn common sense, or how to develop that. So maybe we are not there yet, but machine learning is that advancement of the artificial intelligence that's already a machine has, teaching the machine how to learn. Okay, let's move on. Thaija, I'll start with you. Could you talk about what impacts you're seeing that machine learning is having on advancing predictive analytics at a high level?
I would say the field of risk management. And I think that when we look back at the pandemic, that was really an eye-opener, that really the predictive analytics that we had been using in terms of predicting future events wasn't sufficient because it was only based on historical data. But now when you add machine learning layered on top of the predictive analytics, you can actually have a more forward-looking view of future events and being able to properly respond and make decisions.
Anybody else, anything to add?
I will build up on Thai's comment, and I think the pandemic, as you mentioned, gave us a good lesson since it proved that technology was ready. So I'll bring up the question, were we ready? Were the humans ready for it? And I think that's one element on this question, on this topic, that'll be interesting. How about us as users of machine learning? Are we ready for what it comes?
Anybody else?
I would add that there's been a lot of talk about, our readiness and protecting things like jobs, and when I hear comments like this, I start to think about the first industrial revolution, and where were the people screaming to protect the elevator operators' jobs? As a software engineer, am I scared that ChatGPT can write code? No. There are always going to be ways of writing better code. There are software engineering tools that we've been dealing with, and forward engineering tools that we've dealt with for decades. Is this going to displace all of these jobs? Heck no. It's going to make new jobs. In the United States of America, 40 years ago, we had less than 24 yoga instructors in the United States of America, and now there are whole cities filled with yoga instructors.
There'll be AI yoga instructors in the future?
And absolutely, and there's an opportunity for smaller gyms who can't afford an expensive yoga instructor maybe to enhance their offerings with AI and machine learning.
So is that taking away jobs?
It's not taking away jobs, it's just changing the landscape of jobs and allowing new jobs to be created.
That's right. Himanshu, you want
Yeah,
to add
I want to add one fun fact is, you say like, are we ready? Are humans are ready? Maybe like we have to think about it whether we are ready or not, but our next generation, like the kids that are there, they are definitely ready, right? I see that like, my initial thought is like AI will make us as human dumb, but it is making them more intelligent. Like they can use those tools much faster than we can. So it's definitely like, we have to have higher hopes with our next generation, right? Because I've seen in schools and everywhere, like the students are getting much more smarter, that they are doing programming. Like to give one example, I meet a freshman like from like first year in college, and he was working as an intern, and I asked, how much experience you have, right, in Python? And he told me like he's using it for last 7 years. So it's different world now.
Do you mind if I add a little bit to that?
Go ahead,
in
please.
terms of the intelligence, you know, replacing people's jobs, and like you mentioned, it'll just create a whole new set of jobs for people. And the way that I see AI is really bridging the knowledge gap, right? Now you have a certain level of expertise that you can actually make available to a broader workforce, whereas now today, that expertise is really siloed in like the top 10% of most organizations. Now you have that available to the entire team. And imagine the capability and the empowerment that gives to these individuals now that they don't really have today. So I'm very excited about AI, and I think that if people change their view of the value that it'll actually bring to the workforce, you know, we'll be more adaptable to it coming in and changing.
Yeah, great points there. I think the point about taking away jobs is very important because people worry about it. And what I say is when all of these past revolutions happened, we felt the same. Especially with mobile phones, we thought a lot of jobs will go away and all of that, but it created whole new industries. It created ways to make things better, right? So like the yoga instructors, as an example, I think AI can help fields do things much better. And we as humans are still the inspiration for AI. So we'll be the coaches. We'll be what AI will learn from. So there's never going away of humans, right? But because that's what we're trying to build. All right, moving on. So let's move into some real world examples or applications where machine learning is being used for predictive analytics. Himanshu, let's start with you on this.
Yeah, sure. This is one of my favorite topic is like how we are leveraging the technology. And in financial, the value that financial domain brings is like if there is technology and you can use it rightly, it can immediately generate multifold returns, right? So think about like using AI in stock market, like definitely value addition. I'm coming from a payment background, so like this I've seen like personally in last 5 years. When we onboard any customer, there's so much processing, and banks have this branch where the person comes, fill the forms. Sometimes like we simplify that. Instead of forms, what we do, like we provide them a web form, right? They enter that information. And fast forward, like I don't want to bore you with what all we have done, but now you just enter your last 4 digit of SSN, right? And probably a phone number, that is also not required. And it knows you, right? System knows everything about you, right? Just from basic information that you are providing, and your onboarding is done. Like the bank knows so much about, and again, it's like a lot of privacy information is there, but then there are ways in which we can control that. But it knows so much about a customer than what we know past 5 years back, right? So a lot of processes have been improved. And things move slow in banking, but now the key is like faster you move the money, faster you can make profits, right? So think about like if you are transferring money and it takes you 3 days, right? What if you do in just like 1 minute, right? You make 3 days of profit. And if that profit, you can multiply that multifold, you definitely generate value. So there are other domains also in which you can see the value, but finance industry is where like you can see immediate value and like lot of investment coming. And technology is hungry for investment. That is the key part, right? So one example that I have seen, I was thinking about that idea long back, like when we do a transaction, like when you swipe a card on a POS device, right? You will see that something is rotating, it's going back to the server, getting some information, and doing all that back-end calculation to make sure that you have the funds, right? And this merchant is valid because network, the Visa and Master have all the risk on their hand, right? So if the payment has some kind of a fraud, they have to cover. They are the insurance provider. But if it takes more than 6 seconds, then it is auto-approved, right? So I cannot control my system if something like if the network is slow by any means or anything, the payment has to be done. So think about the chances of fraud, and that all slow down everything. So what if we have a system which can predict, like somebody swiping the card, and instead of doing all that judgment at the time, instead it can predict that this card, this person at this point is not possible, right? Immediately reject that transaction. So I was thinking about it, but now I find an actual company who is doing that, right? So it's more like with AI, the things are like whatever you are thinking, somebody is doing it. So the key is find that person who already implemented it. The ideas are there, but the cost of implementing with AI is also a big challenge because it needs a lot of data scientists, which are something very expensive, right, resources. So it's an expensive thing, but once it start providing that value to business, it immediately get a lot of attention. KYC is another thing, like what I have seen now, like you know so much about a person, like before, earlier, like you have to get all the documentation upload and everything. Now there's nothing, like you just provide the basic information. If it's business banking, you just provide IN, or if it's a person, SSN, and based on the basic information, you can get all the, even the mobile providers are now linked in the system in which they can track the device also. And from the device, we know exactly, you can like do a lot of, like you can tweak the device, but even after that tweaking the device, there are ways in which they can identify that this is the right person or the wrong person. And all this is done, all this intelligence built over a period of time. And now all this is now coming into a real solution in banking, right? So with that, like.
So of course, banking, protecting your financial information, all that is important. I'll just say one field that I have been part of is protecting human lives. Right? So building security solutions that can even give a 5-minute heads up on some threat that is happening in a country is really, really valuable. So that is another field. So in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next topic. And all of these does not come without challenges and limitations. So let's talk about what challenges and limitations companies face when trying to use ML for predictive analytics. And let's start with Bill.
Okay, so one of the first ones I want to get out there, which I know if anyone in this room has been adopting machine learning, is you have to plan for what to do with outlier data. You know, and so in the case of my company, we can understand who you are based on how you type. And so through artificial intelligence and machine learning, we know your neuromusculature on a keyboard, you know, and but that doesn't help us if, let's say, when you're typing your password, somebody comes up and taps you on the shoulder and interrupts you. You know, so we need to know what to do in that situation. And so programmatically, we had to build in routines to deal with the outlier data. You know, and as with anything, you know, there's a fantastic book, How to Lie with Statistics. You know, and you can be the slave to the median or the mean, you know, in any algorithm. And you know, planning in advance for what what to do when outlier data and how to classify that, whether to throw it out or whether to integrate it, is critical, you know. And in doing predictions, your predictions are only ever going to be as good as the users and the profiles that you group your users into, be it demographic or be it sociologic or be it personas, you know, whatever your categories are, you've got to make sure that your categories are broad enough to capture the real world. And guess what? The real world changes. You know, whether it's the pandemic affecting how people had to learn how to work from home, or how people had to learn how to put up with their wife and kids when they were seeing them 24/7. You know, the real world can throw roadblocks at people, you know, and you have to build that into all of these machine learning models. You know, you have to build in the cost of gas and thinking about how inflation affects decisions. You know, when when eggs cost $3 more than they did 2 weeks ago, you're probably going to buy cereal for your kids. You're not going to buy as many eggs, you know. And so the real world is something that can change, and you have to build that into these models. And if you don't, a model that might have been good when you built it, you know, I always warn people that the trouble with building these models is that if you don't build in a process to continuously update them, you know, and to invalidate them when they need to be invalidated, your model is obsolete by the time you're ready to roll it out. And so the smart way of doing these things is to instrument your solution with technology that can allow you to make these changes as you need to. And if you don't plan for these changes, you are planning to fail.
Anything to add, anybody? Okay, if not, let's move ahead. Like we've heard Himanshu and others were saying, AI now knows a lot more about us, maybe more than we think we know ourselves. So that brings us to ethical considerations and regulations. Yoel, you want to talk about that?
Yes, sure. And I think it's really accurate that you plant the question as ethical and regulations. So I'm going to try to approach it first from the ethical side of it. I remember a professor at school that when he was giving us the principles of data science, two of them come into mind with this question. One is trusting God, not in the data. And the second is that no model is perfect, but some are more useful than others. So when we think about ethical, I think there is a self-responsibility on how we apply it. We use it to predict human behavior. And I always insist, and my team, you know, they get crazy by me pushing the point so much, that is not prediction. Can human behavior be predicted? I don't know what Thaija is going to do tomorrow. There's no way to predict that at 5 p.m. But we humans
I know she's going to be here.
What?
I can predict she's going to be here.
But we humans are a species of patterns. And the patterns can be observed. And those patterns can be incorporated into a model. As long as we take into consideration the ethical part of using those patterns in the model. So we apply, you know, psychology into these, so the attribution error. So it's not only about R-square or different ways to measure the validity of the model, but also the human side of observing those models that can make it very, very powerful. And instead of predicting, we call it probability, is a propensity of a behavior. And I think that's where the ethical side can become very cool.
Anyone wants to talk about regulation?
So I'll add something, and I'll add this as a means of telling a story. And I want to tell this story because these lessons that we are learning by failures, you know, may, when you lay them out, sound awful, and they do. You know, we take when we make mistakes, we fail greatly. You know, and the IRS had a biometric measure for submitting taxes because they were trying to prevent this large-scale tax fraud that was happening, where bots from overseas were requesting refunds for people. You know, I don't know if anyone here was unfortunately scooped up in that. I had some friends that were, and it was a tremendous hassle for them. They didn't receive the check, and then they had to rebuild their financial life. But when the IRS did a facial recognition solution with machine learning, their model did not accurately represent people of color. And, you know, shame on them for this massive oversight, but, you know, shame on them for not being able to remedy this to get some people in our society that need the money as quickly as possible, the money to them. But what we need to do is we need to go into the solution assuming it's going to fail, and assuming it's going to fail grandly, and figure out ways of making that failure less, you know. And I think that what I'm worried is that we're going to learn a lesson. We're going to learn the wrong lesson from this. We're going to learn that because this failed, we shouldn't do that, and then we're all going to be subject to these bots. You know, even the people who who were most failed by this. You know, and so regulation, you know, is a blanket. You know, and we can't. If you throw a blanket on a fire, you can extinguish it. And this is an area where we just need to do smart, targeted regulation to cause the least harm, but allow the greatest benefit.
Anything to add, anybody?
Yeah, so I want to add one regarding this. So one other industry which is heavily using machine learning and investing a lot is social media, right? And we have seen like last decade huge growth there, but at the same time lot of concern from people. And so there's one example that I always remember. This is a documentary in Netflix about a lady, like she was using Tinder, right? And it's in European Union. So she had a breakup at midnight, and then she taken a cab, and when she was going back to home, the Tinder start popping. So think about, like, Tinder knows that you are having a breakup, and it can predict that in an hour time. So think about how much data they have and how much accurate the models are created, which can predict things in your life, right? And then she start her legal fight against them. Like, initially she thought this is cool, like everything is there, but then she start rethinking why like this all happened. And then she start that legal fight, and after a long fight, Tinder provide her a documentation with all the information about her. And you know, like, although these companies are more like everything is digital, but the information is provided in form of paper, so she cannot search that easily. And that is 4,000 pages document that is provided to her. They know that much about you. So it's definitely need to control, right? And controls are coming, but there are multiple ways. And technology advanced to create better technology. That's always the case. First, it goes into hands where people generate money out of it, but then people realize there are challenges, and then there are rules and regulations created that will bring new technology, right, which will solve those issues. Definitely a better future.
One last story, very, very quickly, because I think this drives the point home. Predictive analytics, Target was using predictive analytics to send expectant mothers a set of coupons so that they could get very early, neonatal vitamins and diapers and things to welcome a baby, and recommended that they set up a baby registry. They started doing that based on predictive analytics, and that was how this young woman's father found out she was pregnant. And so you have to look at whether or not that is a way that we're actually helping we're helping people, or are we using this data and turning it into a marketing weapon?
I would just reflect on their show Netflix, Black Mirror. I'm sure there is White Mirror as well. So it's up to us.
Bill, I've heard that story. I hope she didn't find out that way.
Well, I mean, it might be beneficial. I think there are people who just don't know. But we've all heard the stories of women who are expecting, having crazy appetites for food that you wouldn't put together, and maybe when you get your bill at a restaurant, it might say, consider buying a pregnancy test, because maybe your order doesn't look like what it looks like every week with us, and there might be another reason. So I don't want to negatively say that it's a tool. It's only a tool that marketers can use for their own benefit and to the detriment of their customers. There are ways that having this large data set available to us can be a godsend and make us aware of things that perhaps we're not listening to our bodies as well as the data might reflect.
Do you mind if I jump in really quick behind that, since you were mentioning the dating app? Could you imagine the predictive analytics being able to just say, even though you guys like each other, the data doesn't show that you would actually be a match, how you could really get through the long, drawn-out process of dating people you're not really going to be matched with, or reach the outcome that you actually want to have.
So I
agree. I think this is all fun, because when we think about regulations and ethics, we go into what we want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I would invite the group to also think ethically what we can accomplish, because there is so much benefit that can come from an ethical use of machine learning.
So I'll just summarize. Regulations will come, but let's not wait for that. As developers, let's build responsibly, and as users, and be safe. Let's move on to some questions from the audience. Anyone?
Hey there. Thank you to each and every one of you. That was deeply insightful. So we talk about everything from the enterprise down to the retail level with an example like Tinder. However, if we look at the approach, and what I really loved what you guys discussed is having a structured governance model in how we manage predictive analysis and OpenAI. We tied it back to some macro conditions, regulatory environment. I love the example of the psychology that goes into it. What would you say across the board, if you were to coach someone on the approach, what outcomes, either via exit or entrance or exit criteria for a structured governance model to run when you have a centric management team saying, I want ChatGPT talking to teams, I want it doing this. And could you please elaborate on the approach for the governance model?
I can, let me take the first crack at this, because I'm sure we all want to jump in. What I would say is that, like anything, testing with a small subset of your users can give you nuggets of gold very early on, you know, and so you might not want to roll out a potentially company-changing algorithm to your best customers first.
Can I add one more point
Sure.
while you continue to really, you know, spread the wisdom here? I think one of the critical success factors which you were identifying was the heck with the waterfall approach. This must be agile. And so from that approach, it's like managing multi-tenant cloud and SaaS, right? It's got to be iterative, which I think you're going with that way, right? So could you speak to kind of that agile approach versus, you know, the companies who may make the mistake and say, let's go all in with waterfall?
Yeah, I think, you know, with machine learning, one of the critical things that you've got to do is you've got to manage the versioning of your model, and you've got to manage the forking of your model, meaning when you change big attributes and they might have big downstream effects. But because you can't know ahead of time what the effects are going to be, and this is something where, you know, I think what the best practices that I've seen, the companies that are most successful in this, bring together multiple disciplines within their company, you know, and it's not just a tyranny of legal and HR and some of these, you know, I'm a developer, so I call these other departments the departments of know first, you know, and so I think getting together everyone and getting on the same page of the risk and rewards that you're willing to take is fundamental to how you execute on good governance.
We are time. I think we all will be around if you have questions to ask us offline.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to just close out quickly on what is the future looking like, and how can people get involved, and just your closeout statements.
So, you know, I'm ultimately optimistic about the future. Like, you know, one of the things I've been telling people is I think that artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies are going to be more important and transformative for society than harnessing fire, the invention of the wheel, and the internal combustion engine combined. We're going to do things we never thought we could do with these technologies, and with the creative minds here and you know and out there. I don't share this cynical view of the world that Elon Musk and even Bill Gates sometimes espouse. You know, for me, we're at the dawn of a fantastic transformative time for us, and you know, I'm all for it, and you know, I'm excited about the things that we're going to invent and the things that AI and machine learning are going to help us invent.
Sure.
I will add to that, like over a period of time, it's getting easier to implement it, right? So definitely there will be benefits, but at the same time, crime will also grow, right? You have seen deepfake, right? So a lot of those technologies will also be coming. So I will say like the future is definitely bright, but there's so much on stake. So control is also very important, right? Because it can produce, like, you can just imagine it, right? It can create a news which look really, really true, and then create problems in the society. It can, like, you expose any messenger API and then push all the social media with all the, like, you can create stories which are not real, right, and create problems. So definitely control is definitely required, but we have to see how the control, like the question that I asked is very valid, and right now I think people are busy creating applications out of it, but definitely control is also required. There are industry standard controls. So in payments we have PCI, like all the big banks have decided, okay, we follow this. I think similar kind of solutions will be coming, which will make it more legit and beneficial for everyone.
Thai, closing statement.
So two things. I think that the future of predictive analytics is going to make us very agile. We'll be able to make decisions much faster and do things in a way that we've never really been able to do. And I think in terms of education, it is going to be so critical in the direction that we're moving that we'll see the AI, the machine learning, the predictive analytics become part of, honestly, general course curriculum for students. And I think that that is really what's going to help us propel in the future, and it really be widespread knowledge, use of how to use data and predictive analytics.
Joel.
I would say buckle up and get creative. The capacity that we have now of computing data and storing data is no longer partial. We don't have to partition our data sets. We can look at the whole thing and process the whole thing. So this is, in my opinion, it's going to become systemic. It's not one section or one group of individuals or just organizational. It's going to become systemic.
So, there's huge potential of ML to the next level, but at the same time, we have to get over the challenges that we discussed and also keep it responsible and ethical. So thank you, panelists, for these wonderful insights and thoughtful discussion, and thank you all for joining.